John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
The scissors cut the paper. The paper covers the rock. The rock crushes the scissors.
Is not playing a child's game a waste of time?
In games, children teach, sometimes more than books. Come, instruct an old man and yourself.
Rock crushes scissors.
Look beyond the game as you look beneath the surface of the pool to see its depths.
Each in turn conquers the other. There is no stronger or weaker.
This is the harmony of nature and not a waste of time.
I will treasure this lesson, Master.
I have 3 treasures which I hold and keep. The first is mercy, for from mercy comes courage. The second is frugality, from which comes generosity to others. The third is humility, for from it comes leadership.
Strange treasures. How shall I hold them and keep them? In memory?
No, grasshopper, not in memory, but in your deeds.
Welcome guys, Andre Hodge, 7 the Truth, Infinite Potential Healing once more. This is the first time you found me, I welcome you. I hope you're having an awesome entry into 2022. It seems like it's pretty next level game on. Things are very interesting, escalating, a lot of challenges, a lot of shit being exposed on a big scale, on the macro and the micro, probably in each of us and stuff, and the people around us. I'm doing this, amongst what I have seen is relative to some solar winds, which are amplifying the energies quite a bit, so stirring the pot on top. So perfect time for my truth fuckery, I think. Be a brat, be the most annoying being in the universe, I think, and piss everyone off, alright? So this is going to be the second in my series of amplifying the echo of your soul's ancient truth. I don't know if I'll call it something else on top of that, but just make it part 2. I've been going pretty hardcore with the mother load of information, and it's chipping away and working very hard, working during my sleep, putting sections of lectures on repeat and stuff, trying to get just get a handle on it. And that has been the case. So I've been pondering doing this for a couple of days. I've been just because it's so dense with information and dates and stuff. I usually like to be spot on with dates and memorize them and stuff, and I don't think I'm there yet, right? So, but what I feel is very important, and the shit going on in my life and around me is confirmation, is I have to raise my game of vetting, and I'll talk about my own personal stuff maybe at the end and stuff, but I'm not going to let any gaps in at all, right? So I've warned about my vetting process, and it's mandatory now on many levels. It's for my safety. I'm not going to get beaten up by the unresolved people and stuff. That'll no compromise to me anymore. And I did that many times in 2021, and it was worthy of. I do that because I sense potential, and I'm happy with what I did, and there's no wrong or anything like that. But I'm not going to broadcast the universe that compromise is okay. My frequency is absolute, especially with what I'm about to reveal here, alright? Because I'm taking a big risk on a level most of you will never comprehend. But I do this in honor of all those that have tried and have suffered, particularly in the last 9,560 years. The Earth has been planned for now, right? After the invasion was absolute, and we've been under control, and Earth has been under control. And I do this for the stamina of the Ayani, and particularly the Hollow Earth beings down there that have been defending basically the universe, from what I get now. And I honor them and their endurance and stamina for what's been going on. It's pretty freaking crazy, alright? So what I want to do is invite you, alright, right now, to just measure everything that you've ever learned, alright? Everything that you think you know, everything you're unsure of, and everything that whatever has had an influence on you to influence your memories, your DNA, your cellular memory, and all that sort of stuff. And I want to invite you to hold that, like I said, my metadata on my left, and be open to what I suggest here. Right? So I've had a few images that I've shown recently, and I'll just grab one. So I'll actually show you this first. So this is all I've used this image in the past, and imagine this is a spectrum of all data possible, right? And it might be limited because it's like a perspective from 2D or whatever and stuff like that, 3D. But just imagine that's all the data there, and my attitude is we're in a free will universe, so there's no wrong, right? Richard Allen Miller, in one of the quotes I did in either part 6 or 7 of the Galactic Special Forces, or 7 or 8, sorry. He said Merlin in this little book that he's quoted many times is, anything not expressly forbidden is mandatory. So everything is okay, that everything possibly has a consequence for what happens, alright? So I'm absolutely respectful of the karma consequence. I don't do things without that being a major factor in what I do. My attitude is I'm always about revealing potential, and I'm not someone that sits on the sidelines and I wait to say, oh yeah, I knew that would happen or whatever. You know, people that say that, they don't have perception, alright? It's easy to say things are once they've happened, but I'm not someone that does that. I get off the bench and I create, and I go in and I do, and I make things happen, alright? Just like what I've said in my past, the experience in this demonic portal that I was working at when I came back from Sydney, like, I turned that place into my fucking bitch, alright? I used it to get stronger. I didn't shy away. I went in every day knowing it was going to be a potential battle and I was under attack, and I made myself strong. I used it as being paid to go to the gym, alright? And not only in my physical body, but also my multi-dimensional defense, alright? So that's how you transmute things and see the potential in things. In my Infinite Potential Healing Part 3, which was about defeat the healer, alright? The biggest thing in that is, there's a real cool quote that Ram Dass talks about where you reduce yourself to zero, your power becomes infinite, alright? Though I call myself Crocodile, Star-Lord, Wolverine, Aladdin, Dundee, alright? I will always, if I get into a situation, go to the lowest, alright? Everyone's about being apex. What if you go to the dust, level the dust and humble, alright? So if people want to impose themselves, I'll be the weakest, alright? I don't care, because I can see it clearer, because I have no agenda on that respect. When you need a hierarchy, you're propped up, alright? They're like your crutch, so you're weak and vulnerable, alright? And I remember this time I went to my market, alright? And I'm not a master of that, alright? I remember there was this lady and she was lost. It was obvious that she was pretty haunted and shit. And I just, you know, had a reaction and stuff, and it doesn't often happen, but I just remembered that, and it was like, but I'm just committed to doing this sort of stuff, so it's that potential investment of my energy beneficial, or is it a trap and stuff? And there's sort of some line mechanics, so I'm being tough on myself. But I remember watching this Buddhist monk, and he was about to walk past this lady, but he didn't. He saw her in trouble and he switched and he went to help her, and it was beautiful. It was just like, wow, dude, you're fucking, like, that's mastery in action. And I realized that there's a better attitude that I could have had in witnessing that. So just take for granted, or not granted, but just appreciate that I am very tough on myself. I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be alive now, alright? Especially with, and being able to offer this information, alright? So what I was saying before about offering you an opportunity to not bring in the baggage of the past, I'll show you the image I was going to show. So see the false and the truth, right? But maybe even just remove the labels away from it, right? Just give yourself permission to remember, like, observe yourself, right? And why do you give that assumptions, right? And a basis of acceptance, and give yourself the freedom to contemplate this and accept it could be the possibility, right? and realize humanity is set up for a massive failure, alright? And it's potentially the last gasp and the last line of defense, alright, that's under attack, okay? Because like I said in the last one, the hopium is pretty amped up, and when in actual fact, when the going gets tough, the tough should get going, alright? And like I said, that metaphor of me using the situation of work where I was at, which was extremely grinding me down and stuff, I used it to make me tougher. I've suggested in the last video, just before the end of 2021, this first in the series, that it's like 2021 was the metaphor. If you've watched The Last Dance on Netflix with Michael Jordan, talking about the Chicago Bulls era, is that it was the 1991 series where they got beaten up by the eventual champions Detroit Pistons, alright? And the disappointment of that failure, Michael Jordan and the Bulls were masters in transmuting the negative into a positive. And instead of going off and wallowing in their self-pity and weakness and how sore their bodies were and all this sort of bullshit, they wanted to win, alright? And they were prepared and committed to do whatever it takes, alright? So instead of taking 3 months off and like needing to let down their what they were doing, they hit the gym straight away. They got on with it, and that's an attitude I have. All right, that's an attitude that I feel is going to be needed and required. And if you live that, then you'll probably know instinctively on some level that it's a serious situation we're in. I would invite you to contemplate everything out there in the narrative, whether it's spiritual community and that, pretty much is all a part of a plan, right? The coordination of things is really fascinating, right? And I mentioned the species that I think is being able to evade awareness, and that's the Anunnaki, right? So two things I know that I haven't heard much in the past are the Anunnaki and Hollow Earth Guardians, right? Stuff I've heard about Hollow Earth is it's a shambles and it's a mess, right? And the Anunnaki is a bit hidden and stuff like that, right? Nothing really offered about that. So perhaps that's accurate, right? But then I've found this mother lode of information and it's all about that, right? All about it. And the Hollow Earth Guardians are the strongest, most reliant force here, right? Because they're connected to a very high level of source and stuff, and most of the beings that come here aren't, right? And I'm going to be quite vague. I have an idea of some of the details, and I might look to be a bit more serious about that in the future. But as I said, I'm still quite raw in this information, but it's imperative that I start getting it out now, right? So I'll just say a couple of things about that, me personally, right, relative to the amplifying the echoes of our soul's ancient truth, right? One attitude I've sort of had in the spiritual community and all that sort of stuff is I've had a sort of interest to the UFO sort of theme and outside and stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's great. I've never been drawn to want to entangle with it too much or really feel a connection to it, right? And you know, that it seems like a lot of people are obsessed about it and that's all they're about and stuff and all that. But what I've sort of realized is that's a subtle echo about my connection to Hollow Earth, right? It's like, you know, even the Incarnation War series that I did and stuff, and I recognize, like, it's like, fuck, it's so much freaking effort to get here, potentially. Like, why would you give a shit about stuff out there? Like, if this is the unawareness realm that I used to refer it to, that we are in this, like awareness is the constant in the universe, so there's a appreciation of the hardship we have in this unawareness realm. And I've said in the past, I realized that the creation of the wiping event was a part of the weaponization of our disconnect from our source information and stuff, right? So we're born into this reality. And in the last video, or one of the last, that the memory wipe was a weapon that's used against us. And yeah, it was about 3800 BC that was last used. Well, an ally of mine said she feels that the last one was about 500 or 600 years ago. All right. So when there's a talismanic word, Great Reset, all right, it's nothing to do with money and all that. It's about wiping our consciousness level because we're a threat. All right, and it's been employed many times before. All right. So, yeah, I'll talk about that and disabling it. It's something called the APIN. It's a bit of like grid technology that's laid over the land to do a frequency magnetic wipe sort of thing, like using scalar technology and stuff, which I've learned. And yeah, part of my role was potentially to disable that, alright? And that's what the Money for Galactic History 2 was meant for, and that's why it didn't come to me, alright? It's exposing who people are aligned to. Does that make sense? Alright? And that's why I was almost killed as well. Right? So, yeah, what I was saying was that it's never felt like a home thing to me, the outside of Earth, right? A lot of people feel like they just want to leave, they want to get out of here and all that sort of stuff, and it's like, sure, you know, it's a bit of a metaphor of like, would you work in a demonic portal kitchen and use it as your bitch to train with, or would you flee away because it's like uncomfortable and stuff, right? And that's the difference between a Galactic Special Forces like Earth Guardian, alright, versus like a snowflake, bubble wrap, light and love and clueless sort of spiritual false teaching sort of set up for failure shit to me, alright? And I'm going to be pretty harsh in my language because it's game on, alright? When you realize how what I feel is the stakes we're at, and perhaps me even sharing this information, it's not appropriate for me, and I respect that. I also respect that in 2013 that when I met the Atna Mutna with their elders and stuff and the head elder called me uncle, and I was like, you know, I got the codes for the ancestors of the land and stuff, and probably a lot more, right? And that's what a lot of people like me to be around. Okay, and most people are triggered by me and think they like to impose their hierarchy over me and use me and stuff. And then on the train ride to my meditation group with my 99-year-old, 101-year-old teacher at the time, I think, was that there was a realization there's no one around, right? And it's still that case. And I just submitted to my role with Earth and whatever it was. So I think I agreed to the Hollow Earth Guardian sort of thing there as well, right? And I don't seek anyone for advice anymore. I don't really feel I've been able to get at what I need and stuff, right? I'm gonna accept what I get because I feel the connection, say in my DNA, where say if you get a truth foundation, it'll connect and you'll get a subtle response. So that's what I feel I'm inviting you to do, is actually we can actually self-actualize the DNA rungs, and that's a part of the threat relative to the Great Reset, because the potential to self-actualize and turn that junk DNA, reanimate it and reactivate it, right, and trigger the memory. So I feel this will be a massive memory trigger. confirmation for a lot of you out there if you have the courage to really do what I invited you to do. Right? So there's the other thing. There's that Carl Jung quote, which he says, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." And you know, the concept of dreaming and stuff, you know, we could get very philosophical about that quote and stuff, but let's just take it is he referring as earth, okay, and hollow earth, alright? So he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside to hollow earth and its strength and its guardianship of earth and our connection awakens, alright? Awakens that truth in our dormant DNA, alright? That's what I'm inviting you to do, alright? I'm employing that quote to see it potentially that way, alright? So whatever your feel of the connection to the universe and galaxy and stuff, it's there, alright? But just accept you're here right now. What can you do? What is the best this moment? And I'm inviting you to contemplate this stuff, alright? Because what I'm going to say is probably going to go against a lot of what you know. I'm going to get a lot of freaking hate. I've had the ripples and a lot of distorted shit in my world. So I use that, yeah, ooh, I'm pissing everyone off. Awesome, I love it. You know, I'm being like Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, like the most annoying sound in the world. Saddle up, partner. And just piss everyone off. It's alright, because I've learned something called the Phantom Matrix, alright? And it's even better than galactic recycling. It's like the massive vampire of our universe. It's all the black holes are related to, and it's sucking energy to, because it's not self-actualizing, it needs an external source for its nourishment. A lot of species being sucked in there, and yeah, they've come out and they've been a bit like the metaphor of in Despicable Me 3. I think that's a movie like with Gru and the Minions. It's interesting what's going on. I'm having to anchor myself quite a bit. It's like where the Minions turned purple, alright, and they became different Minions. When species and beings get sucked into that, they lose an aspect of themselves, and if they're brought back and saved, they can turn on and be like a lot of the negative species and stuff, and that's the source of the original sin concept. And this is a really cool thing, right? And I've got notes and stuff, and I've just realized I forgot some notes, and going through this information, what I've realized is a lot of the spiritual teaching we have here is a byproduct of that like the plan for now. That's been 9,560 years, or 9,650 BC. That was the origin of the plan, right? After the invasion, about 25,000 years, which the surface control was gained, right? About 25,000 years ago. Is that, and this is what I said to Angela, that there's three things. There's pure spiritual teachings trying to bleed through, and that's been going for billions and billions of years, and the efforts to corrupt them. Then there's the identification of the DNA lineages, seeded, the Ainani and the indigo sort of seeders and birth children that have the codes to access the information and stuff, and the regions where they're at, alright? So they're targeted, identified, compromised, taken over, hijacked, or used for the industrial pillaging to get their DNA codes into other skin suits to have the control over the surface. And then there's the weaponization of all the codes into the Luciferian Covenant sort of DNA skin suit, which Thoth and Enoch are source of the origin for and stuff, and and that's been the vehicle that the Illuminati used to access all the codes and stuff and that. So that's a skin suit technology that's out there and stuff that is used to control, that has an advantage over the majority and stuff. Right? So that's a bit of a simple overview. And so, yeah, this short period of that 9,000, since 9,560 BC, all the spiritual teachings sort of been corrupted. But what I've realized is going through this motherload of stuff is most of the pure spiritual teachings are about our potential and the galactic history of a big level going back like about 950 billion years, right? And they've all been coerced, and all the people and the names, they're all species and at that level and stuff. So I was laughing at myself, like when people put down like their religion is Jedi, right? It's actually probably more accurate than anything that's here in our present reality, right? And it's not a joke and stuff. It's a joke, but it's not as well. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. So what we're in is a combination of a plan that was played out, that was set, and it's an agreement of all the negative species that want to control Earth. 9,560 BC, when the plan was implemented. So everything playing out now is an aspect of the plan, right? So even like the marching on the streets and stuff, and I'll get into that later, right? You see the coordination of like the technology, the social media, and the governments and all this sort of stuff. And it's, to me, the thread that connects them all is their Anunnaki souls, right? And they're playing out, and the parallel, the false spiritual sort of teachings and stuff. And if sort of say, for instance, things are perceived, they're actually part of the plan, and people had access to the plans all the way back then because they're a part of it, the implementation of this stuff, to actually take down Hollow Earth once and for all. Because the key is Earth is a relay point for stargates, right? And I'm going to have to go and revisit that whole series, I think, for all the soft disclosure on another level. But Earth has the main luster for Earth in the universe is the 12 stargates it has and the 12 control rooms associated with them, right? And it's not because Earth is, all the other stuff I've been a part of, and that's possible and all that. I've got that in a big discernment thing, right? But Earth isn't actually the strongest. She's the weakest link in the whole universal network. And the invasion here has been like millions of years, hundreds of thousand years to step Earth down, take control of the surface, like attack Hollow Earth and stuff to it, to get access once and for all to these stargates. Because if Earth is the weakest, then the species that have been rescued out of the Phantom Matrix that have turned on everyone, all right, and gone for domination and control, all right. They're almost at the point where they can actually flip it all and then get control of that and flip the whole universe and stuff, all right. And that's the critical point that we're in, okay. So, and this is where I realized just recently of the 15 that I alluded to and all their aspects and stuff. And I have compassion, all right, for saying this. I'm seeing them, that collective, as the being known, or the concept known as Metatron, all right. And it was a underling aspect of another, like, ascended master, right, that got caught up in the origin point of the Phantom Matrix. There was a battle for very high level stargates of different species, and an aspect of this ascended master got sucked into it, right? And then in an attempt to rescue it and shut down what was the original sin, which is this event that has cascaded over 250 billion years, right? More effort was gone into rescue it. It just snowballed and it became worse and worse. And certain negative species that we perceive as negative were sucked in, and it was an effort of compassion and love to try and resolve that, which has resulted in them being what they are and how we perceive them and stuff. So that's where I say I do have compassion, because if you know the story, then you understand the context of why they are like that. So I'm not being negative here. I'm actually sharing all this for the purpose of resolution. But the key is, if we're applying them as non-identified false teachings that is empowering the attack on Hollow Earth, right? Then things could go worse, right? So, do you allow that? No. This is my role. I'm owning this. I'm here standing up and defending Earth, right? And offering my truth, being on the surface, aware of all this stuff with all these people that have done all this stuff to me in the past, right? I'm still here and I'm even stronger, alright? So I'll talk a bit about the Ayani massacre, right? And that's where, and I don't have the exact dates, it could be like 22,000 BC and stuff like that. I'll have to confirm the exact dates, because I've been going over stuff so much. I just want to offer this because I did say that in the last video, and the metaphor I get of the Ayani was, it was the last bastion of the surface of the Hollow Earth, mosquitoes, that was on the surface anchoring it and able to repel all the attacks and stuff. And I'm going to rewatch them, but the Thor movies from Marvel, to me the metaphor of like the Ayani, like bastion of strength, was Asgard, alright? So just play with that, okay? And so Thoth was the infiltrator that brought all that down and did the Trojan horse to get in, right? So if you look at Loki, alright? I'm debating whether Loki is Enoch or Thoth, but I'm thinking more Thoth. So you see his agenda in that movie, alright? It was service to self, alright? And he would switch when it was convenient, okay? So I think it's the second one, alright? It's a metaphor of the downfall of the Ayani, and that's where I realized, you know, if you're here, you're probably there, alright? The twin flame and all that sort of stuff, and I'm not into all that this life. I'm here. I know we're at war, alright? And we're being invaded, and we're at like our back against the wall, not about to get freedom, alright? That's all the hopium, false bullshit out there, in my opinion, alright? Because they're aligned with those species, looking at it as the best outcome for them when they're actually empowering the takedown of the universe, potentially, alright? And this, so this is where I was all about potential and the experience I had, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Andrew that captured me and was doing all the worst to me, alright? And that's where I got, like, it felt like when I did Galactic History 2, I was raped, alright? Like, I birthed something and it was taken from me and I was discarded, alright? Because that was a soul reflection of an experience I've had, okay? And so this was the test, and this is what I was disappointed about. The money, alright, was to go into feeding me, getting my crystals around the world, alright, to people and stuff. And now I'm getting that, like the 300 womb chakras, that's something called the APIN technology or network, right? And I'll just say this about the metaphor of like the Ionian Thoth being Loki. In Britannia, Loki was the invader as well, alright? And he was the Roman general aimed to take down Britannia, okay? And the other thing is Thoth's being Quetzalcoatl, and he went and infiltrated the Mayans and stuff like that. So the seeding of things like the Mayan calendar and the precession of the equinox and stuff. To me, the precession of the equinox was an attack on Earth that wobbled, like, was so bad that it set off her wobble, right? And that's where it's like it goes around the zodiac and stuff. So that's a result of an attack on Earth, of this warfare to try and get into Hollow Earth and that. And yeah, so Thoth, like with the Mayan calendar and stuff, it was seeding stuff as part of this invasion plan that's been going for 9,560 since 9,560 BC, to see the false spiritual teachings and all that. So a lot of people were drawn into the 2012 Mayan calendar that something's going to happen, blah blah blah. Nothing happened, okay? And a lot of people that have been around a while are a bit disillusioned because it's like things are getting worse. Well, that's because the information on the vast level is all set up for failure and false, and nothing about empowerment or, you know, like I said, take what I'm saying is wrong, like set it to the highest level of discernment, as I do in my first principle of existence. How am I wrong in this moment? All right, but what if it's so complete, like the narrative of the Operation Gas on the Fire that I used in the last video, alright? The narrative relative to that is so absolute, alright? People very rarely have the self-validation ability, and this is a big thing, right, in the spiritual community. People love mystery, alright? They love ambiguity and uncertainty. It's like, whoa, if you get the truth, it's like boring. If you get the answer, they don't want to know, right? Because that mystery has an allure to it, the unknown. Because what I know is, like, if you get the answer, then you have a responsibility of incorporating the truth and changing your attitude to life. So people actually don't want to change. They just want to be entertained, and that uncertainty be empowered and stuff. But that belief energy, to me, like when I, with the video with Angela did a while ago, what I was doing was tuning into these teachers that love people to give away their belief, right? It's like their head is cut off and tentacles go into their brain, and it's like a leash, like a drug. When people give away their belief to someone, it's like a nourishment, all right? So it's like greed. Like Gandhi said, there's enough in this world for everyone's need. There's never enough for anyone's greed, okay? So it's like once you get more, you want more, and you want more, and it's not about the truth. It's about perception management, and you get something from that. But it's a setup for failure, as I said. So like that's where I've always, like, my attitude is Thomas Cooper, like, fraud and falsehood, dread investigation, truth invites it. So I'm always transparent. I'm always offering you to, like, find the wrong in what I say, all right? But maybe there's a code that you just can't deny and stuff, and it's like, what if like saying all this shit publicly, like, I'd take responsibility because it couldn't affect people, and I take responsibility all the effect all through time of what I'm saying, because I love taking that level of responsibility to the highest level, all right? It's like I created my principles of existence in my writing in 2013 because everyone wanted to be sovereign and disconnected and blah, blah, blah. I was like, nah, fuck it. I'm going to raise my bar so high that nothing will affect me anyway, alright? And I don't claim to be perfect. There's plenty of things wrong with me, but that's where in the expansion mechanics I included the eclipse relative to Val Valerian, and he was saying like expecting perfection in another is you're seeing your imperfections. When you see the imperfections of other and you set expectation of perfections, then you're seeing your imperfections, and you become what you don't want. All right. So judge not, lest ye be judged. Okay. So we're all entitled to make mistakes and have the space to grow and you know, and offer like when I get things wrong, all it is and I fail. All I've done is I've realized my calibration was off and I correct it. Right? So giving people the space to fail is a very much accelerated path. All right. In this world, it's like it smashes people if they do something wrong. But there's also people that should know not to do what they're doing. Right? You can't claim stuff and then do stuff and it just like you don't get it. Right? To me, that like at this level, there's an agenda, and we're the tip of the spear, tip of the true spear, and you know, I'm gonna get hit a lot. But I don't care. Like we're at our backs against the wall. I'm just going to stop this video because it's quite long, because the file might stop and then I'll get into another one. So I just want to talk about that technology that I felt the money for Galactic History 2 was meant for me, because Earth gave me the inspiration to create it. It was an opportunity to resolve what happened in the past, and it was shut down. Right? It's called the Awaken system network. So the name of the system, I'm having a bit of trouble actually saying it. All right, the Atlantis Pylon Implant Network System. All right, what this was a network implanted over the surface of Earth. All right, to be able to allow for the memory wiping, right? Using scalar technology and magnetic resonance and stuff like that to actually send a frequency out to wipe that's conducive to wiping the human body DNA and memories and deactivating DNA, right? So I feel my crystals, getting them around the world, was not a Dreamtime network. Potentially that's there, right? But that was an effort to disable that network, and that's big reason why my financial issues have been so massive, right? So the money that was meant to come for that got taken, and so there's a lot of consequence for that money, right? Trust me. So that's where they're talking, in my opinion, about the Great Reset. If I don't have a connection, that's cool. You know, like I've done Galactic Special Forces, the Vatican, and all that sort of shit. So I only say that because who else is there, right? Who else is able to get all this and devour it, have the codes, the self-recognition and the Hollow Earth Guardian sort of thing that everyone hooks into and uses and benefits for, i.e. manifesting generator. So maybe that's a connection that you guys out there can actually tune into. The manifesting generators out there have the codes to get into Hollow Earth and stuff, right? And I'm saying a lot of this because my ally Captain Marvel's Dreamtime was hacked last week. For someone that doesn't have access to Hollow Earth, right? And I thank her for her support. She's been a massive ally most of 2021. So yeah, it's like this is another thing, right? Potentially the perception out there is that I'm doing negative things and stuff like that, when in actual fact is, you know, the metaphor of a bully in a schoolyard. It's like they fucking annoy the shit out of you for a long time, right? And then you might stand up to the bully, and they're like, they become like, and then you fucking shellac them, right? And then they become a screaming bitch, like the biggest, like, telltale to the teachers, and then they flip what you do on them, and you get in trouble, alright? So I'm just trying to have an existence, alright? If you have had that perception and you've gained it from somewhere, like, really just contemplate that, alright? And really go, like, reflect on what I've said this, like, last year and stuff. I'm here to do what I'm here to do and defend Earth from the attacks. I'm not a part of the invasion crew Anunnaki, alright? So just contemplate that, alright? So the reason why that APIN was implemented was that, you know all about the creation of species and stuff like that. The Illuminati sort of skin suit body technology and stuff. There's all, you know, I'm going to be very broad and say clump things together, but there's different streams and like factions, and there's good in everything and stuff. So you guys, I apologize if this paints you in that, but it's more important that the actual concept of them and their influence is actually known, alright? So I'll take that hit for you guys, but this is just a high level, like, broad, not very detailed sort of effort to just introduce some of these concepts that are going on, alright? That there was hybrid Anunnakis as well that were not in alignment with the domination control going on, right? So they were breaking out. So a good movie of the Anunnaki to me is like Chronicles of Riddick, 2004. I watched that recently, and they used something called the Antiverse to power their ships and stuff like that. And yeah, it's like a metaphor of the using the power from it's interesting, I forgot the Phantom Matrix, right? So yeah, there's soft disclosure out there that you might get the triggering for and stuff like that, right? So yeah, what I was saying was the hybrid sort of species that were created as the warriors to work with them were rebelling and stuff as well. So the threat was the whole plan would fall apart if awareness was there, right? And so they created the APIN to actually reset everyone. So that's where the false spiritual teachings would be there. We've lost our, you know, very advanced DNA. We've gone from like 800 years to 80 years and stuff, and set up like the memory wipe at birth is all set up. So the corralling of humanity, all right, and our set up for failure, for the control, for the implementation of the final sort of attack going on, from my perspective. And if I'm wrong on that, I'll share that in the future videos, but just consider the scale of things going on, and it's a concept that isn't out there, right? Is that it's all designed to be the final push to access the stargates, which could potentially take down the rest of the universe. So that's why the best of the best are here, all right, to defend that last ultimate line of defense, right? You know, the Spartan 300 movie, you know what I mean? Like against that horde sort of thing, right? So so what I'm inviting you to do is see everything going on in this world is a plan, right? And it's designed to generate energy to hack Hollow Earth and access the portals and stuff. And it's interesting, I was watching the movie Warcraft, which is pretty awesome, and the fell sort of energy was all about energy harvesting and stuff, and I'm seeing sort of the marching on the streets as like a setup for energy harvesting to empower those access points to go in and attack and just grind it down, alright? And so the reason why there needs to be humans, alright, is we have the codes, alright? And what would happen is that the high code sort of indigo sort of like Ayanani sort of beings would be birthed and seated around the control room points. So that's that's the origins of the 12 tribes. You know, it's nothing related to a region or a particular race of people. It's the defenders of those areas with the codes to actually empower the control rooms to access the stargates, all right? And so, unfortunately, on the surface, from a strategic point of view, it's not that defendable, right? If it's known, if the grid points are known in a location. So some of the real negative regions, like where a lot of negative stuff is going on, say New York, right? 9/11 was a surface distraction while they did some scalar technology to blow open, you know, one of the big Stargate portals and stuff, right? So it was like the surface stuff is all a play, alright, while the real stuff goes on, because they couldn't guarantee that those buildings would stay solid and stay in place, alright? So then they went on and attacked like Iraq out of the blue, and there's a control room over there, and that's what they were trying to access, alright? And so all the negative death and stuff energy is like the Phantom Matrix weaponry to do negative to a region to wear it down, alright? And so yeah, like we're seeing the coordination of the tech, the politicians, the elite, and all this sort of certain countries and all that, while there is the division and stuff, you know, and then like the people with like putting gas into their bodies versus the ones that accept that there's natural abilities to put out fires, sort of thing. Like the division between people, division between people and police, the division between politicians and all that friction. You imagine like trying to create fire, rubbing your sticks together to create the friction of the fire. There's energy in that, right? Everything friction is energy and division and stuff, and that's all part of the harvesting that goes into this attacking of the Hollow Earth, in my opinion, right? That's the connection that we're not getting, right? So the whole marching on the streets was a plan that was aimed for in that plan that was set out 9,560 BC. So people that can perceive it, they had access to the plan, right? And everything's going along to plan, okay? So yeah, that's where I'm processing whether the 300 womb chakras are just the APIN network, and we've set ourselves up to empower it by the belief, alright? Without confirmation of validation and stuff, and I could be wrong, right? I don't dismiss everything and stuff, and I'm like finding things very, very interesting where it's like I said, the Merlin thing, and anything that's not exclusively forbidden is mandatory. So everything is right. It's just choice, alright? So I'm choosing to contemplate another aspect, that I wasn't willing to own my power and accept my responsibility and who I am, because I wasn't getting validation and stuff. So I had to self-validate this, alright? And do all my healing and creating all my technology, like doing all my extensive healing and getting beaten up and clearing all the healers and stuff, and to get to this point to accepting myself. And that's where I've been attempting to shorten the journey via my teachings last year, to maybe prevent you going through 10 years of shit and all the crap that I've been through to get to this point, to realize, holy fuck, it's like Batman Begins climbing the mountain. You think like, I get to the League of Shadows and it's chilling out time. Nah, that's when it's game on, alright? It's no joke, and if you've got gaps, you're going to get exposed. And if you come up against any of my allies and trying to infiltrate them and stuff because you skip steps and that, it's like Phantom Matrix time, alright? So I don't want to make this too long, and it's already quite long, and it's a lot of dense information and stuff, right? But I'm going to talk about the Stargates pretty quickly. So like I said, Earth is the weakest link in the Stargate chain, from what I've gathered. And this information is about 20 years old, so a lot can change and stuff. And I offer my apologies if it's a violation of saying this, but I feel like there isn't anyone else out there that can do this with the street credibility that I've come through to get to this point, and the ability to absorb the information and be able to translate it into the simplicity. So there's 12 stargates and 12 control rooms, right? And those were, it's called the Halls of Amente Stargate system, right? So, and I'm just going to try and use the linguistics that the teachings come from to keep it consistent, right? Because I think those linguistics will be triggering and stuff, right? So that network was sort of set up here on Earth. It's been around for billions of years, hundreds of billions of years, but it was about 550 million years ago that was created and established on Earth, right? And so that's where Earth has been regarded as a prize or a prize, because we are the weakest link in that network. At about 208 216 BC, a species called the Omicron draconians, it's like moth species, and I'm pretty sure Nikki and I clobbered them in Galactic Special Forces Part 4, because the Middle East is sort of the region that I've gathered that they operate from. They could be still out there, and I could be wrong, right? We recycled that species to a cell, right? They were a part of the original sin, and they suffered a lot, right? And this is going back 250 billion years ago, right? Where there was a falling out, certain things between species, and an effort to destroy the stargates happened at a very high level, and that created the Phantom Matrix, and then it was decided not to shut it down, to try and rescue all the stuff and that. And so this species is one of the species that was saved from that, but they are very polarized and domination sort of style, and they attacked the Stargate network surface here on Earth, and what they did is they reduced it from 12D to 10D, and up until that point the 12D was very, light dimension or density was very, very defendable, and when it got lowered to 10D, it meant Earth and the surface were vulnerable, because we couldn't checkmate what was coming. And so that's where the grinding down happened, right? And so that's where the Ayani massacre happened, as the last bastion to fall, which I'm saying is the metaphor of like Asgard. If you want to watch these Thor movies and think about that, see if you've got a connection there. And yeah, so the retreat back into Hollow Earth was a result. And yeah, and so the surface plan 9560 BC, which we're playing out at the end now. And there's, I think, because what happens is every so often the stargates, they naturally want to express themselves, and I don't have the proper linguistics memorized, but you imagine they're open. And so from this teacher's perspective, between 2000 and 2017, there was a natural like 22,000 year cycle that they would open. So that was there was a unity agreement of all species to put their weapons down, that this agreement was null and like backstabbed, a bit like the Loki sort of character who chooses his own way when it suits him sort of thing. All these species are infighting all the time. They're not in unity, but when someone gets an edge, someone will betray someone else to take them out and stuff. And the Hollow Earth and the universe has been very tolerant for a long time of this stuff, and that's where my attitude is like, it's tough love time, right? It's where I'm very tolerant, but sometimes the bully's got to be made an example of, right? To put everyone else in their place. And that's why I've had no qualms about doing the Galactic Special Forces stuff, because maybe I'm just something else in the universe with the people I've involved with and stuff, who knows, alright? But yeah, I'm so setting my allegiance with the Hollow Earth Guardians right now, because I think they're the ones who have been the most honourable and integrity sort of based species that have operated in love to give all these species a chance to work out their stuff, but then they're the ones that have been compromised so much, and they're the ones that need the support at the moment with what's going on. So yeah, I'm not going to get too much into the Stargate sort of thing. It's a huge topic and stuff, but it's just their sort of framework sort of thing. So if you've got the connection in your junk DNA, maybe they're triggering sort of things, alright? And maybe you want to go rewatch that series, alright? So what I've done is done a bit of a diagram, very rough, so I'll show it. So these are a couple of timelines, alright? Just trying to explain this stuff. So I've also got some of the seedings of humanity on the surface of Earth 250 million years ago. There's 3 seedings. We're in the 3rd seeding because the last 2 have been wiped, and the wars related to them create a lot of damage on the surface as well. That's when the Draconians, there's many species. There's the Anunnaki, there's the Reptilians and the Draconians and stuff, and you want an explanation of the Anunnaki, Democrats, and all they're associated to. Reptilians are like Republicans, alright? So we're under control, alright? We're just trying to come through and break through this. We've come through it and being caught and trapped and stuff. And that's one thing I forgot to say, is the reason, the need for the APIN, alright, network, the Atlantis Pylon Implant Network System, is the need for having humanity on the surface in our DNA codes is there's a automatic reset of the surface, and that will be a pole shift if we're not here. It's just to clear out the surface and wipe it if we're not here. So the need to control us is because of that, right? Another thing is, I'll drop this in, is the mark of the beast is actually red spot in Jupiter, because Jupiter is the 6th planet, alright? And there's 2 other planets that can come around that are also regarded as 6th planets. So the 666 is those orbits that can come in and mess with our surface, alright? So disarm the dogma that you may think is relative to us and that, and approach it as a more galactic aspect, alright? So I'm just going back to this quick, and I'm wanting to get to the point really quick, is that you can see that the setup for like the surface control for the plan of when those stargates open between 2000 and 2017 was to set up for failure of all the spiritual UFO, like the sheeple sort of thing and stuff, alright? What I've done is sort of, it's about the attack of Hollow Earth, right? The invasion plan once and for all, alright? So control was actually gained at 25,500 BC, alright? Once and for all. And then the plan was implemented, okay? And I think the Ayani massacre happened about 22,000 BC, around then, alright? Or it could be that 25,500. I'll have to confirm that, alright? So when the stargates open, it's called a stellar cycle, right? And that attack there, that 21, like 208, 216 BC, was the Draconians, where they lowered it, the surface maximum potential from 12D to 10D, and that's where we were vulnerable ever since, and it's been a gradual step down all the way till we get to now, alright? So this is a more recent timeline, and it's very, very basic, but what I'm inviting you to consider is everything that's happened, everything that's known, even in the spiritual community, is actually corrupt, right? Egypt, all the pharaohs and all that, the Isis mystery school and all that, everything has been aimed to get us to get once and for all access to Hollow Earth, right? So even maybe the Matrix movies are a metaphor of that as well, all right? So what I've sort of said is Thoth was in Egypt and all that sort of stuff. Thoth was Quetzalcoatl and went to the Central America and influenced all those societies and tribes. And one aspect of the Anunnaki is the sexual violation and energy harvest on the astral sort of stuff. What happens in the spiritual community is there's a lot of false victimhood and projection sort of stuff. So perhaps like one of the species is saying another is doing it when they're actually doing it. It's called the false victim, right? That's why I was inviting you to consider the bully playing the false victim to redirect what they're doing and flip it and see the contrarian view as it's what they're actually doing, right? A lot of stuff in the mouthpieces of the political organizations and stuff, they're actually, you know, trying to project what they want. Like, someone's doing this, it's like we're doing it, sort of thing, right? So what happened about 100 years ago is that the channeling started. Maybe it's about 120 years ago now. The channeling started and stuff like that. And I remember going to my meditation group, and I love my meditation teacher and I love all the spiritual teachings and stuff, and I love contemplating it. And she was talking about the precession of the equinox and stuff in some of her like automatic writings and stuff, which were amazing and stuff. But as I said, I'm pretty sure, because I've gone over a lot of this stuff with this teacher to get download pretty quick, is that she said that the precession of the equinox came about as an attack on Earth to knock us off the you know, have the wobble in the axis and stuff like that, right? So for instance, the Mayan calendar 2012 and all that was a huge setup, and it was for not much, all right? So it was like a carrot on a stick spiritual teaching, right? So it's just an example. And then what happened, it seems, is a lot of us were directionless, and we had beacons out, and we were caught and influenced and hijacked our path, and you know, come to this disillusionment about everything. And you know, there seems to be some, I remember like Battlestar Galactica, and there was one of the videos about it wasn't the main series, it was one of the movie length things, and it was all about the Cylons and how they were so brutal to the humanity and like absolute in their will to destroy us and stuff. And it was very, very dark, and it, you know, I don't know what you've been like, but I've done such amazing things for people, and just what they do as a result of that is just pure, it feels like pure evil, right? And instead of like being grateful and respectful and honoring like a sacrifice to help crises out and stuff, you're destroyed and, you know, diminished and ground into rubble and stuff, and having to put your life back together and stuff. And it's like very callous, like pure evil, alright? And there has a sense of that at the moment, you know. There's something playing out here that seems quite absolute, and everyone is like influenced, and, you know, people don't have the psychic defense for it, or they're give away their trust and set up for failure, and you know, the coordination of things. And that's where I'm inviting you to see that it's actually an Anunnaki plan. It's all their heads of all the states and all this sort of stuff. They're coordinating things and stuff. And what I might do at the end of this is it's put in that Michael Desarian talismanic word sort of insert that I put into one of my videos a few months back, where he's got the leaders saying the same speech and stuff, right? Because it doesn't matter if it's in the spiritual community, if it's in the UFO community, if it's in, you know, whatever other genre it is, it seems to be all coordinated. And what I'm inviting you to do is it is that, because it's actually an invasion. And perhaps the Hollow Earth are back against the wall defending this. And it's time we push back. Even like in the movie Warcraft and Lord of the Rings, the orcs are a metaphor of the Anunnaki, right? Whether it's their hybrid races and stuff like that, whether they're the eras of the expression and stuff, and you know, it's like this invasion is that we're in, that it feels like an invasion. Many people that have been connected to Hollow Earth and these sort of teachings, and they've had the DNA codes to be able to access this innately through the crystals and stuff. Their efforts to actually share this stuff, and you know, we feel something, we feel allegiance to it, even like Star Wars and stuff like that, right? So yeah, it's perhaps this is very simple than what I aim for. I've tried to do my best and stuff, and just introduce a different perspective on things and my part in it. And I'm being transparent, perhaps being very polarized, but after what I've done sort of the recent times with Angela and stuff, it's like the coast is sort of clear, because we've got to start pushing back and owning it, and being disciplined and being hard and demanding on ourselves to be the best that we can, and not justify like all the trivial bullshit that's going on, alright? And see it for what it is, and realize like that imposition on our individual lives is just an escalation of things, of something that's very, very vast that we all do know about, but we have no direction of. So if you do get some direction from it and feel a foundation from it, see what happens. I invite you to explore this and contemplate it. I'm going to keep pushing hard, and as I said, my vetting process is absolute now. I'm leaving no stone unturned. 2021 I invited certain people at times because they played damsels in distresses or whatever and stuff, and so I let a couple of people into my home for healings, and they didn't have all the money, alright? And they said, oh, I will pay you back and blah blah blah. They didn't, and because I have all my crystals, I allowed them access to my crystals, and they took it, alright? And they use their victimhood for justification of violation, and that's not on, alright? So there's consequence for doing that to me, trust me, alright? You don't want to fuck me over. I've got a lot of allies, alright? Earth Mother, alright? And the whole illusion that the planet has to be neutral is bullshit, alright? She can do whatever she fucking wants, and honestly, if she needs to do stuff, I accept it. She sees all and stuff, and we are guests on her, and this shit going on is like, you just have to understand, like, if there's a extreme risk and a like a pendulum going too extreme, there's a balance, alright? There's built-in defenses and stuff to the universal matrix we're in that makes what doing certain extreme stuff and thinking you can get away with it is going to work, right? So fortune favors the brave, right? And fortune doesn't necessarily mean like money. It can mean awareness and gifts and talents and stuff. So I'm inviting you to contemplate this like discern the shit out of me, alright? Maybe I'm totally wrong, alright? But maybe that's like, holy fuck, that's exactly how I felt, but I didn't know how to say it, and it is true. And then what I do out of it? Well, I own my fucking power once and for all, and I don't give away my perception authority to anyone, and I be a match for the best of the best, and I raise my game like Michael Jordan. I employ that mystical training into my life and do not tolerate bullshit, and I do no harm to anyone else, and see what happens, right? So I thank you for finding me. I thank you for exploring this. I appreciate your courage to consider some of this, and if it isn't right for you, that's cool. But lots of love to you, and we'll see you next time it's starting to rain. So peace, guys. We can do this, and shout out to all the Hollow Earth beings in there that have fucking put up with our shit for so long. That's impressive. See you next time, guys. Lots of love. Andre out.
Now, we talked about hive mentality, groupthink. Another term for it, coined by Charles T. Tart, the psychologist at the University of California, is consensus trance. And it can be briefly understood as, look, if it's not in the media, as far as we're concerned, it didn't happen. And if it did not happen, but it is in the media, it happened. A more common word for it is propaganda. And that's a systemic attempt by an interested individual or individuals to control the attitudes of groups, of individuals through the use of suggestion, and consequently to control their actions. And that word, actually, propaganda, is from the Latin propagare, which means the gardener's practice of pinning the fresh shoots of a plant into the earth in order to reproduce new plants, which will later take on a life of their own. Basically, the implication there is that it's introducing something foreign or pathogenic. So that's how the parasite works. Every mosquito, before it drains your blood, has to secrete some of its saliva into you first. So there's this injection first, spreading the disease. It's something which is foreign to your ordinary nature. Said in other works that I did on symbolism, that if man is not progressing spiritually, in all senses of that word, and he's striving hard. I mean, you know, people who are on the spiritual path will always tell you they've done everything they can, they're working very hard. Well then, don't you see that it implies that there's a weight holding you down? And that you're going to need that deconstructive mindset? Because you can keep pushing against the boulder, it's not going to do anything. This is a very yin thing. This is very Shivite. If a hot weather balloon if a balloon isn't rising, maybe the weights are still tied to the ground. Let them go and the balloon flies without any effort. Doesn't require any effort, you see. And that's what I think is happening in terms of consciousness. One of the ways that they propagate this propaganda and consensus trance, I've talked about a lot, is through the word, what I've referred to as talismanic words and terms. And these are well known to politicians and preachers and people who have understood, like Professor Tolkien's character Saruman, the power of the word, the power of speech to control the mind. It's a very esoteric concept that ties into the gods Mercury and Hermes and so on. We don't have time to explore. But my God, have we not had that in recent times, you see. Certain words that are thrown up there. And the study of these particular words, looking at their esoteric meaning, what they might imply connotatively or to the unconscious mind even, is very important. In an article by Paul Levy online called Breaking Bush's Spell, he says that George Bush is a master hypnotist who skillfully puts people under his spell. Bush mesmerizes people by using simple, repetitive phrases. To quote Nazi propaganda chief Goebbels, propaganda must therefore always be essentially simple and repetitious. Keep repeating them in this simplified form despite the objections of the intellectuals. Bush's talking points, his buzzwords, are his incantations. These magic words act as opiates to the fearful masses. To quote ex-Harvard University president James Bryant Conant, some of mankind's most terrible misdeeds have been committed under the spell of certain magic words or phrases. This is again the power of the word. And how do we make a word? We spell it. And to emphasize that point,
the world judged the Iraqi regime was a dangerous aggressor. In the interests of world peace and regional security, the community of nations required Iraq to surrender its offensive arsenal, its chemical and biological weapons, and abandon its nuclear weapons program. Iraq agreed to comply.
The world judged the Iraqi regime to be a dangerous aggressor. In the interests of world peace and regional security, the community of nations expelled Iraq from Kuwait, required Iraq to surrender its offensive arsenal, its chemical biological weapons, and to abandon its nuclear weapons program. Iraq agreed to comply. Iraq's continued defiance of the community of nations presents a challenge which must be addressed.
Presents a challenge which must be addressed. It is inherently dangerous to allow a country such as Iraq to retain weapons of mass destruction, particularly in the light of its past aggressive behaviour.
If the world community fails to disarm Iraq, we fear that other rogue states will be encouraged to believe that they too can have these weapons, these most deadly of weapons, to systematically defy international resolutions, and that the world will do nothing to stop them. That is the ultimate nightmare, which the world must take decisive and effective steps to prevent.
And effective steps to prevent. Possession of chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons by terrorists would constitute a direct, undeniable, and lethal threat, including to Canada Australia and its people. The world has tried for years other means, but so far to no avail. We cannot walk away from the threat that Iraq's continued possession of weapons of mass destruction constitutes to its region and to the wider world. In the final analysis, Mr. Speaker, the absolute conviction of the government is that disarming Iraq is necessary for the long-term security of the world and is therefore manifestly in the national interest of Australia.
In the final analysis, disarming Iraq is necessary for the long-term security of the world, to the collective interests of our historic allies, and therefore manifestly, Mr. Speaker, it is in the national interest of this country.
And so on and so forth. President of Canada, President of Australia. No ostensible connections and exactly the same script, practically word for word. We have many other examples of this. No conspiracy. Nobody higher up. It's all coming from their minds and their brains. Remember John Dean's statement about how Bush's attitude in the White House when they're sitting there? Like he's just sitting there officiating over some sort of macabre play? How much do we know about these words? Do we know that government is actually from gubernare, and mente is mental, the governance of the mind? Do we know, for instance, that the word to entertain, what it really means? For instance, that in Norwegian, actually, it means to be held under, to hold, to be held down. Entertain in Norwegian means to be held under, just like to be amused or amazed means to be confused, to distract. Yep. We know that the religious world is full of this type of talismanic wordsmithery, you see. Take a word that's used so ubiquitously, like spirit. What does the word really mean? Little more, actually, than breath. That's what it really means. But look at the loadedness of that word. Look what it's come to mean in the mind. of people. When we look at this word, for instance, enlightenment, I would say that almost 100% of the people here, or anyone watching this, has a very clear understanding in their mind of what this means. And they're envisioning light, like luminescence. But in fact, has anyone thought that it also could mean lightness, as in weight? Very few. And yet, perhaps if we think about the word enlightenment and think, does it really mean, is it really connected to light and luminescence? What is light? Can light not conceal as much as it reveals? And if you look at the first card of the tarot, the Fool, if you look at what the Taoists were saying, could it be that enlightenment is really a sense of lightness in a sense of weight? But the thing is, you see, that we're, by this abnegation, by this avoidance, like Patrick McGowan said, everybody votes for a dictator. Now, you might say, yes, but I don't vote for your dictator. I prefer this guy. You prefer that guy. But at the end of the day, does it really matter what the stereotype is? We come back to this idea that it's going to be a profoundly attitudinal sense of freedom that basically is the beginning of this differentiation, individuation, selfhood process. Which is why then you can understand why it's not going to happen for everybody. Because that's the criteria. You already have to have that that sense of attitudinal independence. And one might even argue that you either have it or you don't. Maybe it cannot be instilled in someone who doesn't already have it. What we do know is that it's being uninstilled. We know that it's being suppressed deeply. And the experts who know, who have the evidence, they know this, that this is happening every day. And so when we get to grips with that dynamic, there's a deeper sense of responsibility involved, because might we not also be doing that to other people? William Blake said, the fist that crushes the tyrant's head becomes a tyrant in its stead. We might be pointing at that tyranny over the hill or in the other valley, but we must observe our own relationships in life, and even most importantly our relationship with our own selves. How do we relate to our own selves? I went into this in other talks about the self-sadism that's implicit in our attitudes about ourselves, tying back into what Heidegger and even Hegel are talking about, the social persona. If everything that we know about ourselves, everything, is based on the approval rating of other people, and also the fact that we don't get the approval we require, what a mess. And then if everyone's doing that likewise, what a mess. It's the collective mirror then that becomes the prime datum for us, not individuality at all. Except when it's the chic individuality that is presented, the faux version, the bogus version, by the media apparatus that have to give you now the simulacra of it in order to keep you pacified. And we'll be looking at that later on.
In the pond, there are some lotuses which stand above the water. And though their roots feed, they are themselves untouched by it. Some others have risen only to the water's level, and others are still underwater.
Shall I seek to measure these differences, Master, that I may treat them differently, each according to his growth?
Examine the flower. Is not the flower in each position yet a flower?
Shall I then treat each man the same?
As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all.
Yet, the flower beneath the water knows not the sun. Other men, not knowing me, will find me hard to understand.
Accept the ways of others, respect first your own.
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.